The last person I expected to talk about money at Dad's funeral was his wife. But there she was, dabbing her mascara-stained tissues while asking if I'd had a chance to look at the life insurance paperwork. I'm Sophie, and I just buried my father yesterday. He was 62, far too young, and the church still smelled like lilies and grief when Sandra cornered me by the coffee urns. Sweetie, she cooed, placing her manicured hand on my arm. I know this is hard, but we need to discuss the practical matters. You're in no state to handle such complicated things alone right now. I stared at the steam rising from my untouched coffee. What they didn't know was that 3 months before he died, Dad took me to lunch, looked me dead in the eyes, and told me exactly what to expect. Sophie? Sandra squeezed my arm. Are you listening, dear? Sorry, I mumbled, playing the part of the broken daughter. It's too soon. Of course, of course. She nodded sympathetically, but her eyes remained sharp. That's why Trenton and I want to help. Speaking of, she waved across the reception hall to her son, who materialized beside us with practiced timing. Hey, sis. Trenton's cologne was expensive enough to make my nose itch. How are you holding up? Before I could answer, Sandra jumped in. We were just discussing the insurance situation. Sophie's obviously overwhelmed. Oh, yeah, totally understand. Trenton's smile didn't reach his eyes. Look, we can handle all that boring paperwork stuff. You just focus on healing, okay? An elderly couple approached us then, saving me from responding. Sophie, dear. Mrs. Harrison from Dad's office wrapped me in a vanilla-scented hug. Your father was so proud of you. Just yesterday he was showing me pictures of your new project at work. Yesterday? Sandra's voice carried a hint of steel. Kenneth was in the hospital yesterday. Oh, no, dear. This was last week at the office. He came in to finish some paperwork. Mrs. Harrison patted my hand. He was so excited about your promotion. I watched Sandra's face tighten. Dad hadn't told her about visiting the office, just like he hadn't told her about our lunch 3 months ago, or the meetings with his lawyer, or a dozen other things he carefully arranged before the cancer took him. Sophie, Trenton cut in smoothly, maybe we could grab coffee tomorrow, talk about everything properly? Everything meaning the insurance? I kept my voice soft, vulnerable. Well, yeah, and the house, the investments. Dad would want us to sort this out as a family. Family. The word felt hollow coming from him. 5 years of being step-siblings hadn't made us family. 5 years of watching him and Sandra slowly sink their claws into Dad's life hadn't made us closer. I suppose we should, I said, letting my voice shake slightly. But maybe next week? I need some time. Of course, sweetie. Sandra's smile was practiced perfection. But don't wait too long. There are deadlines for these things. As they walked away to mingle with other mourners, Nicole appeared at my elbow. My best friend since college, she'd watched this whole drama unfold from the beginning. They're circling like vultures already, she whispered. I took a sip of my now cold coffee. Dad said they would. And I'm ready. I met her eyes. He made sure of that. Nicole squeezed my hand. Good, because Sandra's been telling everyone you're not handling things well and need family support during this difficult time. I almost smiled. Almost. Did she mention the part where she tried to access Dad's accounts the day he died, before his body was even cold? What? Nicole's eyes widened. The bank called me. They were following Dad's instructions. I set down my coffee cup, just like I'm going to do. Across the room, Sandra was holding court with Dad's sisters, dabbing at dry eyes while Trenton nodded solemnly beside her. They thought they had it all figured out. The grieving daughter, too emotional to think straight. The caring stepmother and stepbrother stepping in to help manage the estate. They had no idea what was coming. You know, Nicole said quietly, your dad would be proud. You're handling this exactly like he taught you. I watched Sandra laugh softly at something, her hand resting possessively on the back of Dad's favorite armchair. He taught me a lot of things, especially in those last few months. I straightened my black dress. And lesson number 1 was never let them see you coming. 3 months before the funeral, Dad ordered pancakes at our favorite diner. His hands shook as he poured syrup, but his voice was steady. The test came back, he said, cutting perfect squares in his stack. It's stage 4. The world tilted sideways. But there are treatments. Sophie, he set down his fork. I need you to listen carefully. There's something more important than treatment options right now. I remember how the vinyl booth squeaked as I leaned forward, how the coffee burned my tongue, how Dad's wedding ring caught the fluorescent light as he pulled an envelope from his jacket. Sandra's been asking about my life insurance, he said, and Trenton's been hanging around my office talking about investment opportunities. Dad, I made a mistake marrying her. His words came out clipped, precise. I was lonely after your mom died, and Sandra, she's good at making people see what they want to see. He slid the envelope across the table. Inside were documents, bank statements, and a business card for Bradley Zimmerman, attorney at law. I've changed everything, Dad continued. The insurance, the house, the investments. It's all going into a trust for you. The memory blurs into the present as Sandra's voice cuts through my thoughts. We're sitting in her cream-colored living room, Dad's living room, and she's pushing papers across the coffee table. It's just a simple transfer of executorship, she explains, tapping a dotted line with her French-tipped nail, to help you manage during this difficult time. Trenton lounges in Dad's leather recliner, scrolling through his phone. It's basically just saying we'll handle the boring stuff while you grieve. No big deal. I pick up the papers, pretending to read them carefully. The document is exactly what Dad warned me about, a complete transfer of control over his estate. I don't know. I bite my lip, playing up my uncertainty. Maybe I should have a lawyer look at these. Sandra's smile tightens. Oh, sweetie, there's no need for that. We're family. Yeah, sis. Trenton finally looks up from his phone. Don't you trust us? I think about the lunch with Dad, about his voice cracking when he said, they'll try to take everything. Don't let them. Of course I trust you, I lie. It's just, Dad always said to read everything carefully. Kenneth was, Sandra pauses, choosing her words. He could be paranoid about these things, especially toward the end. Speaking of the end, Trenton leans forward. I've got this amazing investment opportunity. Crypto's about to explode, and if we move fast with Dad's portfolio, Trenton, Sandra cuts him off with a warning look. Not now. I'm just saying the sooner we sort out the paperwork, the sooner we can protect the family's assets. I stand up, clutching my purse. I need some time to think about this. Sophie, Sandra's tone sharpens. There are bills to pay, decisions to make. We can't wait forever. Just until tomorrow? I make my voice small, pleading. Please? Sandra sighs dramatically. Of course, dear. Take the papers home, look them over. But remember, the longer we wait, the more complicated things get. As I drive home, Dad's words echo in my head. Our last lunch together, his hands steady despite everything. I've left instructions with Bradley. Wait until they show their hand, then call him. He'll know what to do. My phone buzzes with a text from Sandra. Just trying to help, sweetie. Your father would want us to work together. I park in my driveway and pull out the business card I've carried for 3 months. Bradley Zimmerman's number is crisp and black against the white cardstock. Another text buzzes through. Trenton this time. Seriously, sis, this crypto thing is huge. Once you sign those papers, we can double Dad's investment in months. I smile politely at my phone screen. You want me to sign control over to you? I whisper to myself. That's adorable. The phone rings 3 times before Bradley answers. Sophie? He says warmly. I've been expecting your call. They made their move, I tell him, just like Dad said they would. Do you have the transfer documents? Right here. Good. I hear paper shuffling on his end. Your father left very specific instructions for this moment. Can you come to my office tomorrow at 9? I'll be there. And Sophie? Bradley's voice softens. Your father would be proud. You're handling this exactly as he hoped you would. I end the call and look at the transfer papers on my passenger seat. Sandra's pen marks showing me exactly where to sign away everything Dad worked for. Game on, I whisper, and start the car. Bradley's office smelled like leather and old books. He spread documents across his mahogany desk while I sipped coffee from a real china cup. Your father was meticulous, he said, tapping a thick folder. Every transaction, every conversation. He documented everything after his diagnosis. That sounds like Dad. He knew they'd make a play for control. Bradley adjusted his glasses. The trust is ironclad, but how we handle this will define your family relationships going forward. What family? The china clinked as I set down my cup. They're vultures in designer clothes. My phone buzzed. Another text from Trenton. Hey sis, need to talk ASAP. Got huge news about that investment opportunity. Bradley glanced at the message. Has he mentioned his crypto venture to you? Multiple times. Why? Because your father kept a separate file on Trenton's business activities. He pulled out another folder, including some interesting expense claims against your father's company. The documents inside made my blood run cold. Forged signatures, inflated expenses, fake business meetings, all charged to Dad's corporate account. He was stealing, I whispered. Your father discovered it 2 months before his diagnosis. He kept the evidence but didn't confront Trenton. He wanted you to have all the cards when the time came. My phone buzzed again. Nicole this time. You need to see this. Can you meet for lunch? An hour later, I sat across from my best friend at our usual cafe. She slid her tablet across the table, showing me a business news article. Trenton's last startup, she said. Complete scam. Investors lost everything. I scanned the article. Words jumped out. Fraudulent claims, misappropriated funds, pending investigations. There's more. Nicole leaned forward. I was talking to Lucy, Trenton's on again, off again girlfriend. She said he's desperate for cash. Something about crypto investors threatening legal action. So that's why he's pushing so hard for control of Dad's estate. He needs a bailout. Nicole stirred her latte. And Sandra's enabling him because her lifestyle depends on it. Did you know she maxed out 3 credit cards last month? I pulled out my phone and snapped pictures of the article, sending them to Bradley. His response was immediate. Add it to the file. Meeting tomorrow at 2. Back at Dad's house, I still couldn't think of it as Sandra's. I made my way to his study. Everything was exactly as he'd left it, down to the half-empty coffee mug on his desk. As I ran my fingers along the familiar leather blotter, something caught my eye. A document partially hidden under some papers bearing Trenton's distinctive signature. I pulled it out carefully. It was an insurance claim form dated 3 months before Dad's death. Trenton had forged Dad's signature, claiming thousands in fake business expenses. What are you doing in here? I jumped. Sandra stood in the doorway, her face a mask of concern. Just remembering, I said, discreetly sliding the form into my jacket. Oh, sweetie. She stepped into the room. I know it's hard. Have you thought more about those papers I gave you? Actually, yes. I forced a smile. I'm meeting with a financial advisor tomorrow to understand everything better. Sandra's expression flickered. An advisor? Honey, that's not necessary. We can explain everything you need to know. I just want to be thorough. Dad always said, your father, she cut in, isn't here anymore. We need to think about the living. My phone buzzed yet again. Bradley, don't sign anything. Don't agree to anything. Tomorrow will change everything. You're right, I said to Sandra, heading for the door. We need to think about the living, all of us. She called after me. Don't forget about those papers. The sooner we sort this out, the better. In my car, I pulled out the forged insurance claim and snapped a photo, sending it to Bradley. Insurance fraud, huh? Let's add that to the file. His response came quickly. Perfect. The pieces are in place. Tomorrow we spring the trap. I started the engine, glancing back at the house. Through the study window, I could see Sandra on the phone, gesturing animatedly. Probably calling Trenton, planning their next move. They thought they were so clever, so careful. They had no idea that Dad had spent his final months building a case against them, documenting every lie, every scheme, every manipulation. Tomorrow they'd learn exactly what kind of man they'd tried to steal from, and exactly what kind of daughter he'd raised. I pulled out of the driveway, the forged document safely tucked in my jacket. Sometimes the best revenge is simply letting people destroy themselves. And thanks to Dad's foresight, I had front row seats to the show. We're having a little dinner party, Sandra announced over the phone. Just family and a few close friends to discuss the estate. I recognized the strategy immediately. Strength in numbers, social pressure, the illusion of consensus. Dad had warned me about this too. That sounds lovely, I said, playing along. Who's coming? Oh, just us. Melvin from the financial office and a few others. Very casual. 7 o'clock. Melvin, Dad's financial advisor and estate executor. I smiled, knowing exactly why they'd invited him. The dining room sparkled that evening. Sandra had pulled out all the stops. Crystal glasses, silver candlesticks, her best china. Trenton worked the room in an expensive suit, champagne in hand. Sophie! He embraced me with manufactured warmth. You remember Lucy, right? His girlfriend smiled nervously from across the room. She looked uncomfortable, fidgeting with her wine glass. Melvin arrived precisely at 7, briefcase in hand. Sandra swooped in immediately, steering him toward the appetizers. Melvin, darling, we're so glad you could join us. We have so much to discuss. Dinner was a masterclass in manipulation. Sandra dominated the conversation, painting a picture of family unity while dropping subtle hints about my fragile state and their responsibility to help. Sophie's been through so much, she sighed, passing the potatoes. We just want to make things easier for her. Absolutely, Trenton chimed in. Dad would want us to handle things as a family. I watched Melvin carefully. He ate silently, his face unreadable. Actually, Sandra set down her fork. We have those transfer papers right here. Sophie, dear, why don't we sort this out now, with everyone present? She produced the documents from a drawer along with an expensive pen. I glanced around the table, letting them see my hesitation. It's really quite simple. Trenton leaned forward. Just your signature and we'll handle everything. The room grew quiet. All eyes were on me. Perhaps, Melvin spoke for the first time, we should review the actual terms of Kenneth's estate first. Sandra's smile tightened. Oh, that's not necessary. Actually, it is. Melvin opened his briefcase. As executor, I'm legally obligated to ensure everyone understands the situation. He pulled out a thick document. Kenneth was very specific about his wishes. The entire estate, including life insurance, investments, and property, is held in an irrevocable trust. Sophie is the sole beneficiary and controller." The silence was deafening. "That's impossible." Trenton's voice cracked. "Dad wouldn't—" "Furthermore," Melvin continued, "any attempt to transfer control or access these assets without Sophie's explicit consent would constitute fraud." Sandra's face went white. "There must be some mistake. Kenneth and I discussed—" "There's no mistake." Melvin's tone was final. "Everything was arranged months ago with multiple witnesses and ironclad documentation." Trenton slammed his fist on the table. "This is bullshit. We're his family, too." "Trenton," Sandra hissed, but it was too late. "No." He stood up, face red. "This isn't right. Dad promised me. We were going to—" "Going to what?" I asked quietly. "Invest it all in crypto?" Lucy suddenly stood up. "I need to go," she mumbled, practically running from the room. "This isn't what your father wanted." Sandra's voice turned cold. "He never meant for it to go this way." "Actually," I pulled out my phone, "he did. Would you like to hear the recording of him saying exactly that?" Sandra's eyes widened. "Recording?" "Dad was very thorough in his final months. Documented everything, including some very interesting conversations about plans for his money after he was gone." Trenton lunged forward, but Melvin was faster, stepping between us. "I suggest," he said firmly, "that everyone take some time to process this information. Legally, the situation is clear. How we proceed from here is up to Sophie." "You ungrateful little—" Sandra caught herself forcing a smile. "Sweetie, you're obviously overwhelmed. Let's discuss this when you're thinking more clearly." I stood up, gathering my things. "I'm thinking very clearly. Dad made sure of that." As I headed for the door, Melvin caught my arm. He pressed a note into my hand. "There's something you need to know. Call me." Behind me, I could hear Sandra and Trenton arguing in harsh whispers. Their perfect dinner party had imploded spectacularly. In my car, I unfolded Melvin's note. 2 words: check appraisals. My phone buzzed with a text from Nicole. "How did it go?" I smiled, typing back, "Exactly as Dad planned. But tomorrow's when it gets interesting." Through the dining room window, I could see Sandra frantically making phone calls while Trenton paced. Their world was starting to crumble, and they didn't even know the best part yet. Dad always said timing was everything, and the time for truth was just beginning. Melvin's office was a maze of filing cabinets and computer screens. He pulled up documents while I sipped coffee from a paper cup. "Look at these," he said, pointing to 2 appraisal reports. "The first one was filed 3 months ago, when your father was still alive. The second was submitted last week." The difference was staggering. The house value had mysteriously dropped by almost 40%. "Sandra's trying to undervalue the estate," Melvin explained. "She also filed backdated caregiver expense claims totaling nearly 6 figures. "Caregiver expenses?" I nearly choked on my coffee. "She barely spent 10 minutes a day with him." "Your father anticipated this." Melvin opened a drawer and pulled out a leather-bound book. He kept detailed logs of his care, including who was actually there. The hospice staff signed off on every entry. The book showed exactly what I remembered: Sandra's constant absences, her shopping trips during Dad's chemotherapy sessions, the times she was too busy to drive him to appointments. My phone buzzed. A text from Lucy. "Can we meet? There's something you need to hear." An hour later, I sat across from Trenton's girlfriend at a quiet cafe across town. Her hand shook as she pulled out her phone. "I recorded this last month," she said. "I didn't know what to do with it until now." She pressed play. Sandra's voice filled the air. "She's too soft. We'll have it all by the end of the month. Kenneth was an idiot to trust her with anything." Trenton's laugh followed. Dad always had a blind spot when it came to Sophie, but once we get control of the trust, just stick to the plan, Sandra cut in. Play nice, act concerned, she'll crack eventually. Lucy stopped the recording. There's more. They've been planning this for months, even before your dad got sick. Trenton, he forged documents, tried to access accounts. Why are you showing me this? Because I'm done. Lucy's voice cracked. Trenton's not who I thought he was. Last night after the dinner party, he was talking about ways to threaten you, to force you to sign over control. My phone buzzed again. Bradley this time. Meeting in 20 minutes, bringing the final paperwork. Lucy, I said carefully, would you be willing to make a statement, officially? She nodded, wiping her eyes. I have more recordings, text messages too. At Bradley's office, everything moved quickly. He listened to Lucy's recording, reviewed her evidence, and added it all to his growing file. This is perfect, he said, making notes. Combined with your father's documentation and Melvin's findings, we have everything we need. For what? To end this. He looked up. Your father left very specific instructions about what to do if they tried anything like this. Are you ready to follow through? Absolutely. It won't be pretty, he warned. Once we move, there's no going back. Your relationship with them will be destroyed. I thought about Sandra's fake sympathy, Trenton's manipulative smiles, the way they'd circled Dad like vultures even before he died. What relationship? I asked. They destroyed that themselves. My phone lit up with texts from both of them. Sandra, sweetie, let's talk about yesterday. You're making this harder than it needs to be. Trenton, sis, don't do anything stupid. Think about the family. Bradley read the messages over my shoulder. They're getting desperate? Good. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. We'll have them come here under the pretense of negotiation. And then we show them exactly what your father prepared for this moment. He smiled grimly. They thought they were so clever, but Kenneth was always 10 steps ahead. I left Bradley's office with a thick folder of evidence and a plan in motion. In the parking lot, I called Nicole. You won't believe what Lucy showed me, I started. Actually, Nicole interrupted, I just got some interesting news. Remember that crypto investment Trenton kept pushing? The whole thing collapsed this morning. Investors lost everything. I laughed. The timing couldn't have been better. Sophie? Nicole sounded worried. Are you okay? I'm perfect, I said, starting my car. Everything's falling into place exactly as Dad planned. At home, I opened Dad's journal, the real one, not the decoy Sandra had found in his desk. The last entry was dated 3 days before his death. Sophie, when you read this, they'll have shown their true colors. Remember what I taught you. Patience is everything. Let them think they're winning. Let them get cocky. Then show them what real strength looks like. I closed the journal and looked at tomorrow's meeting time in my calendar. In less than 24 hours, Sandra and Trenton would learn exactly what Dad had prepared for them. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just serving justice. It's watching the guilty destroy themselves with their own greed. Sandra and Trenton arrived at Bradley's office exactly on time, both wearing their most expensive clothes, power dressing for what they thought would be their moment of triumph. Sophie, darling, Sandra air-kissed my cheek. I'm so glad we can finally sort this out. Trenton nodded, adjusting his Italian silk tie. Like adults, right, sis? Bradley gestured to the conference room. Please have a seat. We have quite a bit to discuss. They settled into the leather chairs with confident smiles. Sandra pulled out the transfer papers again, her personal holy grail. Before we begin, Bradley said, setting up a small recorder, I need to confirm this meeting is being recorded for legal purposes. Is that really necessary? Sandra's smile flickered. Oh, yes. I said softly, just like your recordings were necessary. Their faces froze. Bradley pressed play on another device, and Sandra's voice filled the room. She's too soft. We'll have it all by the end of the month. Where did you? Trenton started. Lucy says hello, I interrupted. She had quite a collection of your greatest hits. Bradley pulled out the first folder. Let's start with the forged expense claims, shall we? Specifically, the ones you submitted to Kenneth's company, Trenton. That's not. And then, Bradley continued, we have Sandra's falsified caregiver logs, claiming payment for services never rendered while Kenneth was ill. Sandra's face went from pale to red. How dare you? I took care of him. Really? I opened Dad's journal. According to the hospice staff, you missed 37 appointments. You were shopping at Nordstrom during his first chemotherapy session. You're twisting things, she sputtered. No, you did that all by yourself. I nodded to Bradley, who produced another document. Dad kept records of everything, every conversation, every lie, every manipulation. Trenton leaned forward, his confidence cracking. Listen, whatever you think you have, we have everything. Bradley's voice was steel, including evidence of your attempted insurance fraud, your failed crypto scheme, and your plans to coerce Sophie into signing over her inheritance. This is ridiculous. Sandra stood up. Kenneth would never. Actually, I cut in, this is exactly what Dad planned. He knew what you were long before he died. Every move you've made, he predicted it, prepared for it. Bradley opened the final folder. Kenneth left very specific instructions. Sandra and Trenton are entitled only to what they can prove they legitimately contributed to the estate. Which is exactly $0, I added. The silence was devastating. You can't do this, Trenton's voice shook. I'm his son. Stepson, Bradley corrected, with no legal claim to the estate. Sandra's mask finally cracked. You ungrateful little bitch. After everything we did. Everything you did? I stood up slowly. You mean lying to him, stealing from him, planning to rob his daughter while his body was still warm? We were family, she screamed. No, I said quietly. You were parasites, and Dad cut you out like the cancer you are. Trenton lunged across the table, reaching for my throat. Bradley's security team, waiting just outside, burst in and restrained him. That's assault, Bradley noted calmly. Would you like to press charges, Sophie? Sandra grabbed her purse, her perfectly manicured hands shaking. This isn't over. You have no idea what you're doing. Actually, I do. Dad made sure of that. I smiled. You have 24 hours to remove your belongings from his house. Anything left behind will be donated. You can't throw me out. I'm his wife. Widow, Bradley corrected. With no claim to the property. It's all in the trust. As security escorted them out, Trenton turned back. You'll regret this. Blood or not, you'll regret this. The door closed behind them, muffling Sandra's hysterical threats. Well, Bradley gathered the documents. That went exactly as your father predicted. I sank into a chair, adrenaline finally fading. He really did think of everything. Kenneth was a brilliant man. Bradley handed me a final envelope. This is for you. He asked me to give it to you after this meeting. Inside was a letter in Dad's handwriting. Sophie, if you're reading this, they showed their true colors, just as I knew they would. I'm sorry for bringing them into our lives, but I'm proud of how you handled it. Remember, this wasn't about revenge. It was about justice, about protecting what I built for you. Love, Dad. Through the window, I watched Sandra and Trenton arguing in the parking lot. Their perfect world was crumbling, and they had no one to blame but themselves. What now? I asked Bradley. Now? He smiled. Now we watch them face the consequences of their actions. Your father's final lesson in karma. The fallout was swift and merciless. Within a week, Sandra's country club membership was revoked. She couldn't afford the dues. Trenton's crypto investors filed a class action lawsuit, forcing him to declare bankruptcy. I watched it all unfold from a distance like a slow-motion car crash. Did you see this? Nicole pushed her phone across my kitchen counter. The local business journal's headline read, Tech Entrepreneur Faces Federal Investigation Over Investment Scheme. Karma's not just a concept, I said, pouring more coffee. It's a promise. Sophie. Nicole hesitated. Are you okay? You seem different lately. Different how? Colder, more calculated. She fidgeted with her cup. Some people are saying you orchestrated their downfall. They orchestrated their own downfall. I just refuse to be their victim. My phone buzzed. A text from Lucy. Trenton's telling everyone you stole his inheritance. He's getting scary. Be careful. As if on cue, my doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw Sandra, looking decidedly less polished than usual. You need to see this, I told Nicole, opening the door. Sandra burst in, clutching her designer bag, probably one of her last. We need to talk. No, we don't. I left the door open. Get out, please, her voice cracked. They're repossessing my car. Trenton's facing criminal charges. We have nowhere to go. Nicole watched silently from the kitchen. That sounds like a you problem, I said. Your father wouldn't want this. Sandra's mascara was running. He loved us. No, he saw through you, both of you, every scheme, every lie. He documented it all. We can work something out, she pleaded. A monthly allowance, maybe, for appearances' sake? I laughed. Appearances? Is that what you're worried about? Not the fact that you tried to steal everything my father worked for? You don't understand what it's like to lose everything. Actually, I do. I lost my father. The only difference is I didn't try to profit from his death. The doorbell rang again. This time it was Trenton, looking disheveled and desperate. You bitch, he slurred, pushing past me. You ruined everything. Trenton, don't. Sandra grabbed his arm. No, let him talk, I said calmly, pressing record on my phone. Let's hear exactly what he has to say. You think you're so smart, he sneered. Dad's perfect little princess. You have no idea what's coming. Is that a threat? It's a promise. He stepped closer. You think this is over? We're just getting started. Nicole moved between us. I'm calling the police. Go ahead, Trenton laughed hysterically. Tell them how she stole our inheritance, how you forged documents, I interrupted. Committed fraud? Tried to extort me? I have it all on tape, Trenton. Every threat, every scheme. You're bluffing. I played the recording from his crypto investor meeting, the one Lucy provided. His face went white. Get out, I said quietly. Both of you, before I add harassment and breaking and entering to the criminal complaints. This isn't over, Sandra hissed, dragging Trenton toward the door. Actually, it is. I held up my phone, and I've recorded this whole conversation. After they left, Nicole turned to me. That was intense. That was necessary. Was it? She looked troubled. Sophie, I get that they're awful people, but this revenge thing, it's changing you. Maybe I needed to change. I locked the door. Maybe being nice and trusting is what got Dad into this mess in the first place. Your dad was a good man. And look where it got him. Married to a gold digger who couldn't even be bothered to hold his hand during chemo. My phone buzzed again. Bradley. Police report filed. Restraining order in process. They won't bother you again. Nicole gathered her things. I should go. Just think about what I said, okay? About who you're becoming. After she left, I stood in my quiet kitchen, staring at Dad's photo on the fridge. He was smiling, healthy before Sandra entered our lives. Another text came through, this time from Melvin. Sandra's trying to contest the will. Don't worry, it won't go anywhere, but be prepared for more drama. I poured a glass of wine and walked to my home office. On the desk sat Dad's journal, his last gift to me. I opened to his final entry. Sometimes protecting what's right means being seen as the villain. I learned that too late. Don't make my mistake. Outside, I could hear Sandra's voice carrying from the street, still arguing with Trenton. Their world was imploding, and they were dragging everyone down with them. You were right, Dad, I whispered to the empty room. I won, but I wish I didn't have to. The autumn wind scattered leaves across Dad's headstone as I placed fresh flowers beside it. The morning was quiet, peaceful, until footsteps crunched behind me. I thought I might find you here, Nicole said softly. I didn't turn around. How did you know? It's his birthday. Where else would you be? She sat beside me on the cold ground, not caring about her designer jeans. We stayed silent for a moment, watching leaves dance across the marble. Did you see the news? She finally asked. I nodded. Trenton's sentencing had made the local papers. 2 years for fraud, plus restitution to his investors. Sandra had fled to her sister's place in Florida, leaving a wake of unpaid bills and broken relationships. You know what's strange? I traced Dad's name with my finger. I thought winning would feel better than this. Maybe because it wasn't really about winning. A text buzzed through. Bradley. Sandra's final appeal denied. Trust remains intact. It's over. He was right about everything, I said, showing Nicole the message. Dad predicted every move they'd make, every lie they'd tell. I just followed his playbook. And now? Now I run his foundation, help people who actually deserve it. I smiled slightly. Last week we funded scholarships for 3 kids who lost parents to cancer. Dad would have loved that. Nicole squeezed my hand. He'd be proud of you, not just for protecting his legacy, but for what you're doing with it. Sometimes I wonder if I went too far, if there was another way. They made their choices, Nicole said firmly. You just refused to be their victim. Another text came through, Lucy this time. Thank you for the job at the foundation. It means everything. See? Nicole nodded at my phone. Good things can come from bad situations. The wind picked up, carrying the scent of autumn leaves and change. In the distance, I saw Melvin walking toward us, carrying a familiar leather-bound book. I found this in your father's old files, he said, handing it to me. It's different from his other journals. The pages were filled with photos, me as a baby, graduating college, working at my first job. Between them were letters he'd written but never sent, describing his pride, his hopes, his fears. Read the last page, Melvin said quietly. Dad's handwriting was shaky but clear. Sophie, by now you've faced them down, protected what matters. But remember, the best revenge isn't in destroying others. It's in living well, in being better than those who tried to hurt you. That's your real inheritance, not the money, but the strength to stand up for what's right. Love always, Dad. He knew, I whispered. He knew I'd struggle with the aftermath. Of course he did, Nicole said. He was your father. Melvin cleared his throat. The foundation board meets tomorrow. We're reviewing new grant applications, including the cancer research funding. He nodded. Your father would have approved. Standing up, I brushed leaves from my clothes. The morning sun broke through the clouds, warming the cold marble of Dad's headstone. I've been thinking, I said, about starting a support program for families dealing with terminal illness to help them prepare legally and emotionally. That's Perfect, Nicole smiled, turning pain into purpose. My phone buzzed one last time. An email from Bradley. Sandra's sister called. She's asking for help with medical bills. What do you want me to do? I stared at the message, feeling the weight of Dad's journal in my hands. The easy answer would be to ignore it, to let Sandra face the consequences of her actions alone. But Dad's words echoed in my mind. The best revenge is living well. Tell her to apply through the foundation, I typed back, like everyone else. No special treatment, but no automatic rejection either. That's generous, Melvin observed. No, I said, looking at Dad's name etched in stone. That's what he would have done, being better than those who hurt you, remember? Nicole linked her arm through mine as we walked back to our cars. So what now? Now? I smiled, feeling lighter than I had in months. Now we help people. We build something good. We honor his name by being better, not bitter. The autumn wind picked up again, scattering more leaves across the cemetery. Behind us, Dad's headstone caught the morning light, casting a long shadow that pointed forward, toward tomorrow, toward possibility, toward hope. I honored his name by ruining theirs, but that was just the beginning. The real tribute would be in what I built from here. Something lasting, something meaningful, something that would make him proud. Not just his daughter who won, but his daughter who learned, grew, and chose to be better. That's the inheritance he really wanted me to claim.